The burning rivalry between Mac and PC is one of the very most storied rivalries in the history of technology. It's ruined friendships, it's brought down corporations, and it's inspired some very creative commercials. But at a practical level, a lot of people don't understand the fundamental difference between a Windows PC and a Macintosh. That's why in this video I'm just going to be doing a very basic comparison between these two PCs and giving the pros and cons of each one. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with the updated 2015 battle between Macs and PCs. So when you're building a computer, you always start with the physical hardware, then you add an operating system, then you add the applications on that operating system, and then finally you add the windowing system which the user directly interacts with. Now the way that we interact with our computers has changed drastically over the years, but some very basic interactions do remain the same. Now, ever since it was basically founded, Microsoft has always been a software company. The Surface tablets are really the first hardware built by Microsoft in quite some time, so Microsoft's actually gotten really good at creating some really great desktop operating systems. Now, Apple on the other hand controls both the hardware and the software in its computer business, so this means that Apple can optimize and protect its computers in ways that Microsoft can't. Apple's operating system can make presumptions about the hardware it will be functioning on because Apple can extensively test its operating system with every piece of hardware it releases. Microsoft doesn't have this luxury as dozens of manufacturers create hardware for Windows. This is where device drivers come into play and why certain accessories or programs might be incompatible from one Windows computer to another. Now this can be both a blessing and a curse because when you're buying into Windows, you get a huge array of choices and form factors and different types of computers that you wouldn't get if you were buying into Apple. I mean, you get obviously the choices between desktops and laptops, but if you go with one of these things, you get basically every choice imaginable for what sort of hardware you want to put inside it, for what size monitor you want to have. Basically everything can be customized, and that's pretty cool. You can even build your own PC if you want, and that's definitely something that's not true for a Mac. The obvious downside to siding with Apple is that you'll only ever have one machine to choose from. This does lead to inflated prices, which is why an $1,099 iMac is actually seen as a bargain. Both OS X and iOS are regularly lambasted for being closed off in comparison to other mobile and desktop operating systems as well. You do have a lot more freedom on Windows to customize both hardware and software than you ever will on a Mac. Now personally, I prefer PCs to Macs, but it sort of does come down to your personal preference. I mean, the core distinction between Windows and Mac is that Windows is more for people who are looking to buy a really powerful computer or really looking to optimize their hardware, while Macs are more designed for people who just want a sort of a one-stop solution for their computer purchase. I mean, both of these computers do have their ups and downs, and I think PCs are better overall because, as I said, they do offer better customization, better value, and then just more choices overall. But I think that both these two computers do have their place. Now so far, everything I've said may sound redundant to those of you who are familiar with both Macs and PCs, but something that is important to keep in mind is that honestly, as both hardware and software has progressed, Macs and PCs have gotten more similar. I mean, with Windows 10 and OS X, both are very functional operating systems and you can basically do anything you want on either one. Windows might be slightly better for gaming, and Mac OS might be slightly better for video editing and photo editing and that type of thing, but with that said, both of these two operating systems can basically handle everything you throw at them. So, choosing between a Mac and a PC shouldn't really be so much a software distinction as it was, say, 10 years ago. The difference between Macs and PCs really does come down to the hardware, and that's where your personal preferences will come into play. But with that said, let me know which is your favorite in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and you thought it was sort of a helpful description of, where we are with both Macs and PCs now, and I will see you next time.